You ever have one of those days where your blood sugar makes absolutely no sense? You eat the same breakfast, take the same insulin, follow the same routine. Like yesterday, fine. Today, complete chaos. You're just sitting there staring at your CGM thinking, why? And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why this keeps happening and why it's almost never actually random. Because once this clicked for me, after more than 4 decades living with type 1 diabetes, it took a huge amount of pressure off. I used to have this happen all the time in the mornings. I deliberately try to do everything the same. Same drive, same coffee, same insulin, same 2 pieces of toast. And for a couple of days, perfect. Great blood sugars. Then day 3, suddenly I'm sitting at like a 10, sometimes even 11, stuck high, watching it creep up and wondering, what the hell's going on? I did the same thing. Same insulin, same breakfast, same bloody routine. Nothing changed. And that's the part that sucks living with type 1 diabetes, especially if you're someone who actually tries, who pays attention, who wants stable numbers and a normal life. You're not even trying to be perfect. You're just trying to be stable, trying to feel normal, well, as normal as you can with type 1 diabetes. And even when you're doing everything right, it still doesn't make sense. I've lived with this thing for a long time now. I've raised 2 type 1 kids, and I've spent years watching patterns show up in my own data. And what I can tell you is this: what feels random almost never is. Here's something I say a lot: diabetes loves routine. It absolutely loves routine. Do the same thing every day, same meals, same timing, same insulin. Diabetes loves that. But the human body, not so much. The human body's complex. Hormones change. Stress fluctuates. Sleep varies. Activity levels move up and down. So even when you do everything the same, your body's doing its own thing. So a quick question for you. Be honest. How many times this week have you looked at your numbers and thought, this makes absolutely no freaking sense? Like, what the heck? If you live with type 1 diabetes, probably more than once this has happened. For a long time, I honestly thought my blood sugars were just unpredictable. But if I look back, I started noticing patterns really early on. When I was younger and I got my first glucose, I remember eating those classic high carb breakfasts, toast, cereal, milk, juice, that food exchange system, and seeing my blood sugar spike every single time. Back then, testing for the first time. Pretty basic pattern looking back. But it was the first time I thought, okay, maybe this isn't random. Then I noticed if I reduced some of that stuff, like the juice, for example, my blood sugar didn't spike as much. If I went for a long walk after breakfast, I had this little chihuahua back then. Anyway, my numbers would actually come down. Again, not random, but a pattern. So where it really started to click for me, though, was years later when I had more data. First using that Libre, the scanning system, the flash glucometers, then eventually using a pump and CGM together. And the moment this finally clicked for me, where I stopped feeling like I was doing diabetes wrong, came from looking at my numbers one completely different way. Nothing about this is actually random. It only feels that way when you're looking at it one day at a time or a single day on its own. Here's the best way I can explain it. Diabetes is kind of like using a GPS. You can leave the house at the same time, drive the same route, follow the exact same directions, and one day, smooth drive, no issues. The next day, you have traffic everywhere, construction, weather, detours. You didn't do anything wrong. The conditions change, right? Diabetes is the same. You can follow the exact same routine, same breakfast, same insulin, same timing, and still get a completely different result. Because the body isn't a fixed route, it's a living system. Hormones shift, stress changes, sleep changes, activity changes. So even when you do everything right, the internal traffic can be completely different that day. And when you zoom out over a few days, like using a GPS map, zooming out, instead of judging a single moment, patterns start showing up everywhere. Mornings are a big one. Morning blood sugars can be stubborn as hell. Same breakfast, same insulin, and some days you're fighting highs before the day even starts. That's not random. That's hormones, cortisol, sleep quality, stress before your feet hit the floor. Same routine, but your body's doing its own thing behind the scenes. You can eat the exact same meal and still get a completely different result. This happens a lot with my morning. Every person with diabetes has lived this. One day it works perfectly, the next day it spikes you for no obvious reason. But if you look back over a few days, sleep, stress, timing, activity, there's almost always something underneath it. And stress and hormones play a huge role. I've seen it in my own life. I've definitely seen it with my girls who have type 1 diabetes. Certain times of the month, or just high stress periods in life, blood sugars that were predictable suddenly aren't. That's not failure or being a bad type 1 diabetic. That's just your body doing what bodies do behind the scenes. And once you start recognizing that, you stop blaming yourself for numbers that feel completely random. You start getting curious instead. Here's something simple you can try. In a minute, this will start making more sense almost immediately. Instead of reacting to today's numbers alone, look back at the last 3 days. Same times, same meals, same overnight trends. Look at the data for what it is. It's almost like zooming out on a map. When you're zoomed in too close, it's like trying to use a GPS when it's so granular you can't even tell what part of town you're in. Everything feels chaotic and confusing. But when you zoom out, patterns start appearing. You'll notice things like, I always run higher here, or I always spike after this. I always need more insulin when sleep is bad, for example. That's a huge one. It's honestly, once you start seeing patterns, you find relief because it stops feeling so chaotic. You start to realize you're not losing your mind and you're not to blame for every bad blood sugar. You're not bad at diabetes. You're not failing. You're just living inside it. And once you start seeing and understanding the patterns, you actually gain some control back. You're living inside a really complex body while trying to manage something that loves your team. And if you live with diabetes long enough, you've definitely had at least one day recently where nothing made sense. You're not alone in that. If this video made you feel even a little less alone with diabetes, hit that like button. That tells me to keep making real life pattern videos like this. If you want calmer, more predictable days without burning out, hit that subscribe button because that's exactly what this channel is about. Struggling with nighttime blood sugars? Watch this next.